Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to talk about homeschooling because with COVID and everything going on, a lot of people are considering homeschooling and maybe they've never done it. One thing about homeschooling, your child can learn at their own pace. You put a child in a room full of people with a teacher that's teaching at a pace that's supposed to be for everybody, but everybody's not at that pace. Some of them will be ahead, some will be behind, and some might actually be at that pace. But if you're at home, they can learn at their own pace. They get the one-on-one attention as well. And like you teach a child to read, your children learn at different paces. Like my oldest son, my first one, he could read like a fifth grader when he was 5, and I taught him how to read, and I thought, wow, I'm such a great teacher. And then I had my next child, and it was much harder to teach him how to read, and I had to learn had to learn new skills on teaching him to read because I had to come from every angle to work with him because he learned in a different way. And then once he did learn how to read, he could spell very, very well. He was a really good speller, but he was like 6 or 7 before he could read good. Um, when you're homeschooling, you have different resources that you can use. You can get books from the thrift store. Sometimes you can get full workbooks from the thrift stores, math books. You can get, if you can't afford workbooks, you can go on the internet and look up workbooks and you could try to draw them out yourself. You can go in Walmart, look at the workbook and take pictures and go home and draw them out. And then you just create your own workbooks. Another thing about homeschooling is you're going to learn even more as you teach. You have to. It's just a given, which is really wonderful, and you don't realize it till you have to figure out how to explain it to them. And as you figure out how to explain something to somebody, you might even have to look up more information, and then your children teach you by asking you questions. You can teach simple math by using pennies and things like that. And then instead of having the question at the end of the math problem, you can have like blank plus 2 equals 3, or 2 plus blank equals 3, or 2 plus 3 equals blank. And that way you teach them a little bit of algebra as you're teaching math. And you have that option because you control their curriculum and how they're taught. You can test them before and in between to see what they know, to see if they've missed anything, to know what level they're on, and you have that one-on-one control. And it's fun. Homeschooling is fun. If you have the time and you can do it and you're there with them, it is fun because you can play board games. And there's board games that help them learn, like Hangman, Yahtzee, Boggle. They have these word like Yahtzee games. You can play tennis and badminton. You get to do art. Scattegories is a fun game that helps teach them as well. Doesn't matter if they spell it right, just as know as, it's fun. Clue. Clue is a fun game, and you learn a lot from Clue because you have to figure it out and solve it, and it teaches you to think. So you get quality time with your children while you're doing it. You can use library books. You can go to the library, check out some books. You have to worry about COVID and stuff like that, but if there's not that many people there, we used to read to the children at the library. You can buy Dr. Seuss books online and get them. There's different web pages you can use, like easypeasy.com, and I'll show you that one in a minute. You get to choose their subjects, like English and writing and reading skills, and you want to stick to those skills, but you can add other skills to them. We used to have weekly reader books so that we could buy those little workbooks and bring them at home, and they learn so much faster. My oldest was in the 6th grade at home, and he scored 3 above 12th grade scores because they used to make us go get tested every year at the school, and they would complain about us homeschooling and say, well, they got to be as smart as the other students, and then poof, they found out that the other students that were at the school were scoring so much lower than the homeschoolers They wouldn't let us test. They didn't want us to test. If we paid to have them test, they didn't want to see the scores because it was in the newspaper. They have all these things online like purplemath.com, and they're free. They're free. And if you're teaching them math, just make sure that you give them like 3 to 4 pages of each new math skill. And yeah, to them it's going to seem a little boring because you one page they feel like they got it. But if they get 3 to 4 pages of each new math skill, then they really learn it better. And then, later on, when you go to test them, you can see if they remember all those skills and if they've retained it or if you need to teach them. And there's YouTube videos you can use to teach them that teaches them different kind of interesting math skills and English skills, like Schoolhouse Rock. When I first started homeschooling, I had a ninth grade education. I had dropped out of school in the 10th grade. I had not even attended college yet. And then I homeschooled for like 6 years. And then when I went to test to go to college, I got pretty high scores. So I didn't even end up finishing. I never got a high school education and I still went to college. So you just never know. I was in my 30s. You might want to teach them Bible studies, and they don't have that at school anymore. So homeschooling, you might want to pray with them while they're learning and things like that, and they don't do that at school. And you can look up to see what they need to know for each grade to make sure to help them learn it. But a lot of times you're homeschooling, they might learn all that within 3 months, whereas it takes them all year long to learn that at school, because at school the teacher has to pass out the papers. She has to pick up the papers. Sometimes they have to walk to different classes and then they have to settle down and things like that. So there's a lot of things going on, so that they may not get that one-on-one time where if you're at home teaching them, they actually probably get more time learning each subject. And you get to choose their subjects. Like if you want to teach them cooking, and cooking teaches math skills where they got to measure and learn how to do things. It teaches them how to follow directions, and it gives them this kind of I can do it attitude, and it helps to teach them to take care of themselves as well. And this is a skill that that they'll need and they'll use and they'll carry with them. Art, you teaches them creativity, um, writing their own stories and writing their own songs and poetry. They they can learn so much. You can teach them cursive at home. I don't know if they still teach it at school. I know they were trying to get rid of it, um, which helps them to be able to read stuff on microfilm, which otherwise they wouldn't be able to. You can teach them about nutrition. We went to one school when I was in the 5th grade, I think it was, and we would go like 1 or 2 days a week to this school, and we would have to travel by bus and then travel home, which is time we weren't learning. But we learned different skills, like sewing by hand. We might sew by hand and make like a stuffed animal that was sewn. Um, and we might spend a month in that class and a month in another class. And then they would teach us to use the sewing machine, how to thread the sewing machine and things like that, how to make candles, leather craft, baking these crafts where we could paint and different things. So we learned different skills and we got to choose these different skills. They had all sorts of different skills. I think they even had woodworking. And do you remember the 4-H club where they taught you manners, setting the table? Stitching, making a shirt or blouse, an apron, making snacks, freezing food, dehydrating, making jelly or jams. They taught you about babysitting, how to count out change, making jewelry or beading. They taught you about bees and honey, wildlife. They taught handyman skills and things like that, money management, taking photos, first aid. What goes into a first aid kit. I don't know if they taught that, but that's something you could teach your children. You teach them how to save money for a vacation, traveling safely. You could teach them about camping out, and write that down as part of your schoolwork. You guys teach them math and English and reading and all those things, but you can add other things to it. Um, what to take with you when you go camping, emergency kits for travel, or when the lights go out for storms. You can teach your child how to debate and have them debate from the opposite opinion. So if you have an opposite opinion than theirs, you can teach them how to create a debate by the opposite opinion, and that has them do, they have to research that and create arguments for the opposite opinion, which teaches them perhaps to have a more of an open mind. Typing, there's a skill you can teach them when you're homeschooling. Um, and you could teach them about entrepreneurship, like writing books and things like that, or YouTubing, or if they wanted to open a restaurant, you could teach them how they would go about doing that, or a thrift store, or whatever, home design, decorating, whatever type of entrepreneurship that they think would be interesting. Having a daycare center, becoming a handyman. There's all kinds of different entrepreneurships. So you can touch on subjects like culture and food in other countries, even by watching YouTube videos. There are YouTube videos where people, Joel Bruner has a YouTube channel, and he teaches, he goes to different restaurants, and he talks about teaching Thai, speaking Thai, and he's going to start talking about ordering food and when you go to order and different things. And then you get to learn about the food and the people and how interesting they are, and you learn so much. There's so many different YouTube channels that will teach you about culture and food, and then if you want to travel there, you can go and visit. But then you can also know how to do it more safely. Where's a better place? Where's a good time of the year to go? And what the temperature's like and what you need. You can touch on art history, music history. You can buy a keyboard for $40 and get free lessons online and teach them about playing the keyboard. You can touch on forensic. You can go outside to study about the trees and the animals and the plants and photosynthesis and the clouds and the rain and the different kinds of clouds and the stars, and teaching them directions like using the compass. You want to teach them how to use a map, how not to get lost, things like that. You can teach them a little bit about cars, organizing, creating a web page, tie-dyeing, drama or acting, dance even, like just Zumba or something like that. How not to get lost when you're camping, like how to, I don't, how you mark your area, and if you start to go and you can't find the trail, how you go back to the area you came from, and how to go to a different direction and come back, and things like that, so you don't get lost. Um, and you could, when you go to read online, if they're younger, they have like Mother Goose online, different books online. You could teach them how to create and plan their meals, gardening, and growing their own food, macrame, knitting, crocheting, things like the Animal Kingdom books. There's just so much that you can teach them at home. I know 4-H used to teach about electricity, but it was simple, basic electricity. It's not dangerous types of electricity. I am afraid to mention that because I'm afraid somebody's going to go in there and and they have like free online drawing classes on the internet if you want to teach them about art. They have all sorts of stuff. Free typing classes. They have Purple Math. I don't know if you've been to Purple Math, but you go to purplemath.com and you click on the lessons. You can click alphabetically or in study order. So if you want to use that while you're learning, you can go see what they have, and it depends on the age of the children. But they even have like big complete workbooks at like Walmart or on the internet and stuff like that, and you can look up what they want to learn. You can like read along to Heidi. You would like them to be able to see the words. Some of them will read to them, but you can't see the words. And it's better if they see the words while you're reading to them, if they're learning how to read, even if you're sitting next to them and you point to the words, or if it's on the YouTube video and they can see the words, it will really help. And I'll go into another video about how to teach a child how to read, but not on this one. A Mother Goose is online. If you want to read along with them with Mother Goose, you can find Mother Goose nursery rhymes on the internet that they can read along, and those are fun. And then there is Schoolhouse Rock. Do you remember Schoolhouse Rock? That was one of the things when I was a kid. We had cartoons on Saturdays, but it would be broken up with commercials, but Schoolhouse Rock would come on. And Schoolhouse Rock, like if you need a break from homeschooling, there's like 6 hours of Schoolhouse Rock videos you can find. And they teach different things. They teach multiplication, they teach about government, they teach about English. They have all sorts. There's the one about the bill. There's so many. There's multiplication tables, verbs. There's so much at Schoolhouse Rock. I had forgotten all adjectives. I had forgotten all the different subjects that Schoolhouse Rock covered that we learned on Saturdays in between our cartoons. And they're right there. If you go to YouTube videos and hunt for them, you can find Schoolhouse Rock videos, bones, a noun, every subject, so that if you need a break and you're homeschooling, right there they learn. I mean, even if they're going to school and they come home and you want to make sure they learn a little extra, which is what we did. We learned that little extra from Schoolhouse Rock. Easy peasy, all in one homeschool.com. That my granddaughter was behind on her reading. And she moved in with us, and my son wanted her to get caught up. So he used Easy Peasy All-in-One Homeschooling. And I logged in as a guest here to show you. This one shows math. And it shows you they go Easy Peasy All-in-One Homeschooling has like everything. It has like you can sign them up for their grade level. And I don't know if it costs anything or if it's completely free still now because it's been a few years. It's been like 6, 7 years, I think, since she used it. But it has everything in it. And they use different web pages. And it's so interesting for the child because they're not doing the same thing in the same web page every day. And you can sit there with them while they learn it. And then if you want to add to it, you can add to it. But this makes sure they get their main subjects. You can see foreign languages, Bible, language arts, spelling. And then right here you can see some of the different, like you can click this and it'll take you to a different link. Count to 20. I could have just clicked it, but I wanted to open it in a new page. And there's the directions, and it tells you what to do, and then you play, and then it tells you how to play it so that you count by 20 using the balloons. And to me, that's just fun. That's just fun. So as they're learning, they make it fun. And I think they learn better that way if it's more fun. And this goes over, they've got different lesson plans. And it really doesn't take that much time out of the day for them to do it. And that way, you know what they're learning. And do you remember 4-H? I love 4-H Club. When I was younger, we had the 4-H Club, and it had all these different subjects. They still have the 4-H Club on the internet. So even if your child's in school and you want to order extra to make sure they get that little bit of extra at home, you can. So if you're interested in homeschooling, I just thought I would cover, and a little bit of it. And later on, I'll do some more videos. I might do one on potty training for parenting, and then pros and cons of homeschooling maybe, and different things like that. So, and then how to teach a child how to read, because I don't know, some people may not know how to teach a child how to read. They may not have, because I wrote, it was like the late 80s, I think, and I had to run around finding books on how to teach my child how to read so that I could, well, at the time I wasn't homeschooling him. I just wanted to teach him how to read because the school he was going to didn't use a lot of the phonics, and I just wanted to make sure he had excellent reading skills. And then when he did go to school, his teacher took that fact that he could already read and he was in kindergarten, and she had him sound it out like the characters would sound as they were reading it, and she would have him, she took those skills and made him even better. And then he would read aloud to the class sometimes so she could run errands and things like that. So that was my first child. He was really, really gifted. You know, I had other children and they weren't quite as gifted. So it wasn't my parenting that made him be able to read so good. It was the fact that he learned very easily. So, but your children are going to learn at different paces. So you have to know that because people are different and they absorb it differently. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed my video and thank you for tuning in to my channel and I hope that helped you some. Thank you. Bye-bye.